Hey everybody, it's Wisp, and I've been playing Fire Emblem Heroes, as you probably know, and when the Ascendant feature came out, I was really curious who qualified, what it would mean, if this was a heroes-only thing, and right when I started to think I was narrowing it down, right, I was looking at heroes with intriguing post-game concepts that leave a lot of mystery, who don't quite qualify for legendary status, so not main characters, and usually not the main characters' best friends, like Soren, Robin, and so on. And then Ishtar happened. Not a main character still, but spoilers will occur in these videos. So before I share why Ishtar kind of feels like she's out of left field for me, it's just another warning. This is a spoiler-heavy video for all of the Fire Emblem games. But she's dead. She doesn't have a post-game at all. And in this version of her Ascendant hero, she seems to sort of know that that's what was happening, that she was going to die on that battlefield. They don't exactly address it. Whereas for all the other Ascendants, they feel like post-game stories. Joshua's actually had him working as king with the mercenary band and trying not to forget who he was and where he came from. Eden actually got to experience the peace now that her soul was back. And we saw her living in that, and how she doesn't really like fighting anymore, but she does it for the right reasons, sort of deal. I don't know what Ishtar's story was all about. She was trying to find her new place in the army and not repeat the same mistakes as last time, which was a nice story, but it didn't have that same like post-game feel that the others did. I don't know if that's going to be a normal thing. For the most part, I'm still going to stick to characters that have an interesting post-game story to tell. But every now and then, if you're popular enough, then I feel like maybe it's different. Maybe. But every now and then, I think for the characters who are popular enough, they can make it, even if they are dead. So that's kind of what my guidelines are. And again, for now, I am not picking characters who I think would qualify as legendary heroes. So that's why you're not going to see certain characters. And the other thing is that while Fjorm is a legendary hero, Heroes characters tend to debut as legendary heroes, and they also don't quite have a post-game yet. They do have post-books, but their full post-game stories haven't been realized. So I'm skipping Heroes for now, because I think really any Heroes character could be Ascendant, and it's just a matter of popularity at that point, and who IS feels like doing, because sometimes popularity alone doesn't dictate them and guide their hand. So with all that out of the way, let's start with the first set of Fire Emblem games, the Arcania Saga. Coming in as friends with Marth, I think Navarre would be a great Ascendant hero. He's a popular character, so much so that every character who fits the Navarre stereotype is in the usually antagonistic swordsman that often joins after being spoken to. Sometimes has issues with women, and sometimes just has issues with everyone in general. They're always a popular subtype of character. So I think Navarre has earned his place. But he's also in Warriors, and we see a version of Navarre that has gone from a ruthless mercenary that only really struggled to hurt women to the commander of the Queen's Guard. You could use the Warriors promotion outfit for him, where he has the black top and his coat is down around his waist. He's got the pauldron on him, and I think that would work fine. You could also go for something more Heroes-esque, where they really like to make the characters super fancy, give them really long and flowing robes. And then the Radiant games also have a design for True Blades, which is like a third-tier Swords Master class. And I think that we could pull that design in for something, because it's not like Edward's getting it anytime soon. I think Navarre is a great candidate with a story to tell as this new person. And already some design influences from Valencia, or Echoes games. I think that Valbar is a great candidate. There's actually a history where he was a main character. The original box art has Valbar right in the middle, despite him not being any more major than any other random chapter recruit. But it's very likely that back in the day, he was actually going to be a third route, which also means we were going to get the red, blue, yellow Lord trio as early back as Fire Emblem 2, and the first Armored Lord in Fire Emblem 2 as opposed to Fire Emblem 7. And one thing that's so crazy about that is that Valbar doesn't really seem like he qualifies as a legendary hero. In fact, he was added as the instant demote Like, we were introduced to Valbar in Heroes as a 4-star in the summoning pool. That's pretty rough for a guy who could have been a lord. Would have had a legendary hero, might have won CYL by now. But instead, this is what we've got. Popularity's not all there, so even an Ascendant might be out of the question. But he's got one of my favorite post-game stories, where he's just such a genuinely good person that he becomes one of the commanders in Alm's army, and everyone always wants to be around him. People love him. He's just considered a great person. I think that seeing him struggle with that and his vengeance for the pirates and what happened in his past with them killing his whole village and his family, yeah, of course he wants revenge, but he's genuinely a good person, and he's not always chasing revenge alone, and it's not common that I get to see somebody struggle with those two aspects of themselves. So let's get Valbar in there, I hope. From genealogy, I picked Eldigan, but Aries works for most of the same reasons. Sigurd, Cain, and Eldigan were a trio of best friends, and Cain is the father of Leif, Sigurd of Salif, but Eldigan's son never became a main character. He kind of went back to the shadows. So it's a little hard to see Eldigan ever getting anything other than an Ascendant. And the only reason he works is because Ishtar worked, but I would like to see Eldigan come as a ghost, like Sigurd did in his legendary, because I want to see Eldigan in Aries, and Cain and Leif is much more likely to happen. Sigurd and Salif has already happened, but we don't really get to see Eldigan and Aries interact. So, since he's one of the few men with a canonical child, because in Fire Emblem 4 the children are tied to the mother, so whatever I picked for my playthrough might not be yours, so you can't really do mother-child interactions, but for Eldigan you can. He has a canonical wife, a canonical son, so I'd love to see him get a chance to meet that child, even though it would be post-mortem. And that works for Aries just as well. Leif and Salif got legendary heroes. Aries doesn't quite qualify for one as far as we know, so maybe he could get an Ascendant to make up for it. Really, the same logic applies to either one of those two characters. I just picked Eldigan because of my own preferences for the Gen 1 cast of Fire Emblem genealogy. Although for Fire Emblem 5, it is really not a question on my mind. The next Ascendant is going to Reinhardt. I mean, you live by the meme, you die by the meme for one, but secondly, even though it did sort of start off as an in-game joke between the Heroes fans, it became something real. People actually do like Reinhardt now, and people always have, but his popularity has skyrocketed. But it's also fine because that's sort of one of the first inside jokes the Heroes crowd had, so it's important to Heroes itself, even if not Fire Emblem as a whole. A lot of things have come and gone since then, but the Reinhardt one was legitimately one of the first that we all knew. And I think that he sort of earned a place for that alone. But he's also a great character. He's not even really a villain. He's a good man. He's got his head on straight. He just happens to have fallen in love with his hometown, and he doesn't want to betray his hometown to join Leif and his band of young teens who are supposedly going to change the world after their war. It's a little unbelievable that Leif is even right, and Reinhardt knows that not everything his country is doing is great, but he loves his country, so he dies for it. I think that him coming back, again, maybe post-mortem, maybe it's a version of him that is able to talk to people and see things from more than just his patriotic standpoint. But I definitely think he's going to be an Ascendant hero, and he completely deserves it. My list has definitely been a little male-heavy so far. So luckily, I finally found Fire Emblem 6, the Binding Blade. Binding Blade could change my mind. I think that Sophia makes the most sense for an Ascendant hero from this game. I'm a little biased. I do like the character, and when I don't like most of that cast aside from Roy, Sophia is kind of the one that stands out. And her popularity shows that too, despite having a character in the game and an alt and a resplendent. She still performs fairly well on CYL, which isn't a perfect popularity contest, but some hints toward general popularity can be taken from it. So, with that out of the way, I also just think that her story as a half-human and half-dragon works pretty well, because to a lot of people, Roy is the same way. He's part dragon and mostly human, but also just because dragons in Fire Emblem are an important part. They're an important species. So having Sophia in an Ascendant role already fits. Her backstory is either, or her post-game story is either that she becomes a queen and helps the people, which maybe they go off of that, but I know that Liliana is a more popular choice for that, and they probably don't want to give definitive answers anyway. But even if not that, she just returns to the land of the she just returns to the land of Nabatea, I believe it's pronounced. Not my strong suit, but the land of the dragons. And we know nothing about what she does. She kind of fades into history like characters like Kaze do in the more modern games. Her ending is ripe with mystery. They can tell us anything and we would have to believe it. Or they could try to be vague and be so mysterious that we don't know if she's the queen married to Roy or if she's off doing her own thing. I think they might try to play the middle ground, but since this is a multiverse game, they can always just say like, well, this is only one version of her, so don't be too offended. But I think she's a great pick. Alright, for Fire Emblem 7. To a lot of people, this game was just called Fire Emblem. It was their first entry. We already got the 3 major lords in as legendary heroes, and I don't know if anyone other than Ninian qualifies for the 4th legendary. Actually, to play it safe, I'm avoiding her for now because I do think she will be a legendary, and I picked Nino. She's got a tragic backstory, a tragic post-game story, and she's a fun-loving and very kind and cheerful person despite all of it. So I think that is really easy. They've already got it all set up to make us feel for her, and all they have to do is drive it home with some decent writing for her Ascendant storyline in her Forging Bonds, and I think most of us will be at least somewhat convinced. Not to mention, because of her kindness, largely, she is a popular character, and that definitely helps.